Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Data Unchained. I'm your host, Molly Presley. Before I introduce today's guest, let me tell you a little bit about this show. Data Unchained is all about how the use and access to data has really changed as it's become increasingly decentralized. So as you think about 30, 40 years ago, maybe even 50, when the first mainframes were created, there were massive compute systems that took off floors of a building, and all the data and all the people who use the data were in that building together. Now, fast forward to where we are today, now that we have the cloud, we have incredibly powerful devices that are, our cell phones that we carry in our pockets are more powerful than those original mainframes. Data is being generated in a lot of areas. We have a lot more data, and how we use it has changed dramatically. And that's what we focus on in this podcast. So without further ado, let me introduce today's guest. JB Benjamin, and you go by JB, is that right? I should have asked you before we kicked off.
Yes, that's right. I have kind of horrifically long name that everybody mangles. It's actually Jean-Benoit Benjamin. Way easier just to say JB.
We appreciate that, or I do, certainly. So you're the CEO and founder of Akuma Engineering. Tell us just a little bit about yourself. Where are you located? Kind of what brought you to being the founder of this particular company? And then we'll talk about the company itself.
Okay, well, I'm actually based in the Midlands. I'm based in the heart of England in a sleepy little village called Nuneaton. Well, I say sleepy little village. It's like over 120,000 people now based on the last census. This area used to be historically kind of like the center of manufacturing for England. Okay. You had Coventry, you had Leicester, you had Nottingham and Birmingham. And then this area Britain joined the EU and it kind of all collapsed. So it's kind of a reason why I came back to here, because I was actually born here. I was born in Birmingham in the 80s. So I kind of saw Britain at the height of the industry and then saw its collapse and lived in a council estate while it was all happening. So it was all kind of groovy and fun. Not. And the reason I did live in London for quite some years. I lived there for about 16 years, met the mother of my children, had 4 children. And the reason I came back to this region is because the way I kind of looked at it in terms of strategy is that if you're ever going to fix some of the big problems in the country or the world, you kind of start at the center, you start at the heart of the place and you kind of reach outwards. That's kind of the plan. It's horrific. It's always very stereotypical British weather here. It's always very wet, windy, cloudy, and then when you do have sun, the sun is so blindingly hot it scorches you all of a sudden. You're like, oh my god, why is it so hot?
I experienced that. I just flew back from London 2 or 3 days ago, and it was on the spectrum of why is it so hot. Definitely.
Yeah, it's really weird. The British sun is insanely weird, and I've traveled around Europe and other parts of the world, and you just don't experience anything like it. It's bizarre. Part of the reason for coming back to here is because I'm very passionate about bringing industry back. What would be the new industry for this area? What would be the thing? It wouldn't be making cars anymore. It wouldn't be factory, and it may not necessarily be agriculture, which are all things that were big for here. It would possibly be technology, quite possibly, because we have lots of people. We have a high population in this area, many of whom are willing and ready to be retrained. So it's a fertile area for creating new opportunities, basically. And that's what we intend to do with Akuma Engineering. Kind of brings me to your next question, which is one of the core tenets of Akuma Engineering is trying to do everything as much as you can using localized resources. So we're not about outsourcing. We're not about paying tens of thousands to bring other people in to an area and then paying them. We're actually more about, if we're in an area that doesn't have the skill sets that we need, we will invest money into training people and upskilling people in the local region to be able to take on those roles, because we believe that's a far better way of doing things than importing talent. You create new talent. Hopefully.
I love that. On this show, we talk a lot about distributed workforce and how lovely it is to be able to spin up a artist or a scientist or whatever it is in South Africa or France or wherever. And that's kind of the polar opposite, to build it in country. And, both are great, but I do love that idea of investing in the community and the country and the skill sets you're building. That's cool. So Akuma Engineering, you have a focus at the company that couldn't be more timely, I don't think. I know it's kind of focused around the idea of incentivizing users to provide their data for AI training. And, most people are worried about how to stop their data from being used for AI training. Yeah. So maybe just give us a little background about why that focus, what does the company do, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Before we go into that description, one thing people have to realize is a very important thing, which is that you're all living your digital lives on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all these different platforms. And if you check the terms and conditions, you'll notice, or you'll discover, to your dismay, that every single thing that you upload is owned by them. It doesn't matter what copyright notice that you decide to put on it, or whatever copy pasta nonsense that you see floating around Facebook saying, I don't give you permission to use this for whatever. It's pointless, because the legal reality is that the minute you upload your content to those systems, they own it for perpetuity, literally. So, for example, you could post a picture of your lovely child on your profile, and then without you knowing it, you've basically given Facebook permission to sell that picture or the data of that picture of your child to a corporation who will then use that likeness to peddle or advertise something, irrespective of whether or not you agreed with it. Why? Because it's part of the terms and conditions. That is the worst case scenario. I mean, the other scale of the worst case scenario is that your data is used to refine direct political marketing at you. Isn't that a fun one during an election? So what we're doing with Akuma Engineering is the other problem you have as well is because all of the AIs or the LLMs or large language models that have been built and are commercially and non-commercially available are all effectively built on what is ostensibly stolen data. It basically means that building companies and products using those systems, like OpenAI, for example, means that your product automatically comes under threat from IP and copyright legal issues and civil challenges, particularly in the European space. There's a reason why Facebook cannot release the latest Llama model into the European space. Why? Because in doing so, they're breaking the law. They're infringing data privacy. So, what is Akuma Engineering? Well, the reality is people are not going to stop building AIs. It's wishful thinking. Elon Musk can write as many letters as he wants while at the same time building his own private AI. So the reality is it's happening. Pandora's box is open. There is no closing this and taking it back. So how do you deal with this? Well, yes. A lot of people are afraid of their data going out there. Okay, there's a reality here. If you're going to live your life online, you have to get comfortable with the fact that there will be digital breadcrumbs. There will be a copy of your digital soul left there. What the real question is are you going to do anything about taking control of it? And this is where Akuma Engineering comes in. Akuma Engineering is effectively a holding company. And at our core, we have three companies, Cryotech, Digital Technologies, and Gorgon Blackbox, which are wholly owned subsidiaries of this Irish holding company. All of the applications, all of the apps, the platforms, and infrastructures within these three companies allows us to create an ecosystem which replaces the current paradigm that people are using. For example, we have Vox Messenger, which is the most encrypted, most highly secure messaging platform out there. But you own your messages, you own your data, and you have true message deletion, and you benefit from post-quantum encryption. Vox Alive, our version of Facebook without ads anywhere in there, where you can actually, again, take control of your data. We realized very quickly that within all of our companies, we actually had applications and platforms which generate all of the data types necessary for training the next generation of LLMs. So, as opposed to doing what everybody else is and just going, cool, give us your data, what we're going to do instead is we provide everybody with platforms and an ecosystem they can use safely and securely. And then from 2026 onwards, the plan is that we're going to offer users incentivization options to actually monetize that data, including the ability for them to actually grab their data from all of the different applications, which are unconnected applications in the ecosystem, classify it, tag it, segment it, which is all stuff that has huge value in the AI space, and then package it and make it available for us to then either license or use in creating new data sets and new training models. This basically means each user has a functional form of universal basic income starting to develop just from the utility of their data.
Do you see that this is a trend others will latch onto? I mean, there's a million applications, probably well over that, billions of applications, social media, messaging being, a couple examples. Do you feel like this is a direction industries will go, consumer business data?
I think it's a direction that other companies will follow once they realize that they're not going to get away with stealing people's data anymore. In the United States, it will be felt. Bear in mind, they have multiple different types of data privacy law in the United States. It's kind of a fractured system. There's no unified data privacy. There's COPA and about 3 different other ones, whereas in the EU space, we have GDPR and the Responsible AI Act, which kind of covers everything. The more and more that people start just butting heads up against these barriers, that's when you'll see these other companies following suit. Bear in mind, though, you are starting to see encroachments in our personal security already happening. Bear in mind, we have the announcement by Apple that they are, as opposed to developing their own decentralized AI, are instead jumping into bed with Microsoft and OpenAI. And I got to be honest, after looking at what they've proposed as their proposal for keeping Apple customers safe from data bleed and data exploitation into the other AI systems operated by Microsoft and OpenAI, I see nothing there to give me any assurance that an Apple user's data will not be stolen in exactly the same way as any other person's data is. In fact, it will be made it'll be actually made easier. Why? Because when you purchase an Apple product, there is this kind of like implicit understanding of security. It's implied security, implied safety, the implied guarantee of safety because it's Apple. And that is very deceptive. You don't have that with Android. I mean, with Android, most people completely understand that they have to be a little bit in charge of their device. They need to know what is going on with it. But with Apple, they claim they're going to hold your hand and keep you safe. And that, I hate to say it, this is something you're going to have to increasingly look out for. I mean, anybody buying an Apple iPhone with integrated AI right now, particularly in a business environment where you are handling proprietary data, is a very foolish person. I mean, there's a reason why at Akuma Engineering we have banned the use of Zoom for any of our phone calls. Why? Because Zoom have changed their terms and conditions to enable them to take recordings of every single interaction and call and scrape it for their AIs. Think of the proprietary information they're gaining access to.
So when you think about me as a user, I'm a business leader, I'm an exec at my company. How do you find which tools are the right ones and which ones are not? So if you're going to be the most conservative, let's say, I have something that I just can't get out, but I still have to do video calling. I still have to do shared data sets. Like, is there a gold standard committee or, website that says, here's the ones that are not doing data sharing? How do you go about it?
You have to get good at research. You have to get to know the product. More importantly, particularly in the world of AI, which is filled with the cult of personality, I would perhaps say you need to research the people working on the product. Because bear in mind, AI is a tricky animal. Even the best AI scientists in the world will still admit there comes a point when they cannot actually explain what's happening in that little black box inside of the LLM.
Right.
Which is truly terrifying when you think about all of the different things that we're using it for, to be able to say, oh, guys, it's fine. Let's make some money off this. Yeah, it's cool. Put it in everything. Do we fully understand how it works? Could we literally delineate it on the back of a pad? No. So I would say it's becoming good at research, not just the research of the product, because the reality is when it comes to AI, it's incredibly hard to work out what the ingredients are. And if you can't work out the ingredients, you are best placed to investigate the cook, the chefs, those involved in the making of the product.
That makes sense. What is their background? What type of projects have they worked on? That type of thing.
Did they work for a 3-letter agency or any weird brigades?
Yes, kind exactly.
Of stuff. Yeah.
So at Akuma, I'm assuming you have the type of people who know how to deal with security and care about privacy and things like that. Let's say my company wants to get off Slack and onto a new messaging platform. How does that go? We kind of think about, do you have to go and recruit everyone involved and get them to agree with it? Kind of or instant messenger or whatever it is?
Well, again, this is a tricky one because one of the biggest problems that you have, particularly if you're trying to introduce a new paradigm, is dealing with what they call product ubiquity. Facebook, for example, has product ubiquity in the social media space. Microsoft Teams has ubiquity in the business space along with Slack. So how do you break that? Actually, I'll give you an example. Here in Akuma, when we talk about our market, we don't talk about competitors. We talk about future partners. We talk about interoperability here. Okay. That's what we're interested in. So one of the really cool things we're actually doing at the moment is we are preparing to start development on version 3 of Vox Messenger. And version 3 is an incredibly interesting beast. Not only is it moved completely to decentralization and introduces end-to-end post-quantum encryption to the blockchain, something that nobody else is doing, but it also adds Vox Pay and Vox Crypto, which means integrated wallets and integrated independent remittance and payment transaction systems integrated into your messenger. So you'll be able to send money to people. You can use your debit card. It even generates a debit card for you. Oh yes, we've gone into banking, and it's fully interoperable. Now, what does that mean? Interoperable basically means that using the Vox Messenger client from version 3, you will not need to sign up to WhatsApp, Signal, Teams, or Slack, or any of the other future partners, because our platform's interoperable. Our system can literally just send an invite to the other person. It spins up a DMZ server that sits in between, leverages the actual other person's API system, and then puts you guys into this shadow realm. That is kind of like the DMZ.
Spooky and exciting.
Yeah, but it basically means your messaging, your end of the conversation is fully protected from
even if my partner's is not. Yes. I'm speaking to. Very cool.
In fact, actually, it gets even better, because when that partner talks to you in this DMZ server, it even becomes hard for their platform provider to read what they're actually talking about as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's talk about 2026. You talked about there will be this future that you're working on where data could be used for training of LLMs, specialized LLMs. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like which LLMs, why would someone do this? You said incentivized because you actually will figure out a way for them to monetize their own data. Maybe explain that a little bit more in detail.
Okay, so basically we're going to be creating the Vox Energy Hub, which is basically where you'll be able to, theoretically, you'll be able to log in using your allocation of Vox token, which is a blockchain, it's an infrastructure token that we've built, which allows you to basically go between all of these different platforms and pull all your stuff together from them if you wanted to. Inside of this hub, you can then select the different types of data. Now, inside of the hub, you can do also something else very important. You can classify your data. Now, the reason why this is important is because at the moment in AI, there's actually a massive human exploitation element taking place. And that human exploitation element takes place at classification, segmentation, or tagging. Tagging is when you take pictures, audio, or anything else that you're trying to identify as content before plugging it into an AI. You have a bunch of people eyeball it and go, it is this. So, for example, OpenAI have got hordes of poor, underpaid people working in India, just looking through millions upon millions upon millions of pictures, and they are earning like less than 1/5 of a cent per tagging classification that's being done. It is absolute slavery. But what we're going to do is you'll be able to pull all your data types together. You'll actually be able to classify them yourself and tag them. Now, this all has huge value. There is a value. We can actually stick a monetary value to tagging and classification. This actually gives us a monetary value of the data based on the data quality. So, for example, you as an end user could just go, I can't be bothered. I'm just going to allow them to use my data, but I can't be asked to tag it or classify it or translate it because I speak multiple languages, into my natural language or anything like that. It's just raw data, giving it to them. You would earn less. But if you then went through the process of tagging it, segmenting it, and classifying it, because that data has become enriched and higher quality, you would earn more. You would then click a little switch and say, make available for LLMs. You could then, if you wanted to earn even more money, click another switch that says, make available for data brokers, which basically means, again, you're taking control of your data. You're basically doing exactly, at this point, you're doing exactly what Facebook do with your data. The difference being is that the revenue earned from that data, most of it goes into your wallet as opposed to Facebook's this time. So the money earned from renting your data to a data broker who then uses it for advertising analytics, that revenue comes directly to you. You see what I mean?
So are you, I totally get that. So you're saying this data, once it's tagged for being used as for LLMs, for example, then you over at Akuma would decide, would you build the relationships with those who are making LLMs? How does that
Yes.
work?
Okay. Actually, we're already building the relationships with the data brokers and data providers. Because this is the thing. We've met loads of startups and people in the fundraising space, and you get lots of people going, oh my God, we want to be the next open AI. No, we bloody do not. We have no interest in building LLMs, actually, because
this is a completely different business from
it's actually,
all I
mean, I've got to be honest, the reason being is because I don't actually believe the future of AI lies in large language models. The future of AI actually lies in every individual human having what I call an ILM, an individual language model. And this is what we're getting to. Now, given that you have control of all of these different data types that you're able to pull in and classify and tag and make available, this gives you another opportunity, which is that you can train your own AI, your own personal GPT that is trained just off of your data. And because you have a direct control of where your data goes and who has access to it, theoretically, if you kept those toggle switches switched off and only enabled the third toggle, i.e. to make the data available for your guardian angel AI, that's what we're calling it. We're calling them angel eyes, your guardian angel AI. It will be fed from you. It will learn from you. It will become your digital twin, in essence. When you ask it a question, because it knows your data and your content, it will actually speak and act as you. Bear in mind, when you combine this kind of data with some of our other products, like Spatial Scan 3D, which is our product which allows you to 3D scan yourself and create a digital twin, you could easily create a digital twin that speaks and thinks like you, and then you have off making faceless videos for you. This is another way of generating passive income. Think of how your digital identity could be making money for you while you sleep. Literally, just generating videos and content. And this is this is why I love this idea, and I'm really passionate about pushing it forwards, and I'm putting so much time and energy into it, because we lose a lot of creativity and innovation in the world, and we lose it because there are so many people who are stuck in the poverty trap, and they have no way of ever bringing themselves out of it. You know, poverty actually is a great driver of innovation if you can get people out of that cycle. And that's what I'm hoping this will do. I'm hoping that this will allow people to literally just live their lives and monetize their digital existence, which means they can hopefully be their best selves and have their best version of their lives. Hopefully.
I love that. Creative and super inspiring. So we've talked primarily about individuals and consumer type data. Is there an analog to all of this for businesses?
Of course. Bear in mind, at the moment, there is a massive race on for quality data. Everybody knows this. Yep. There's a reason why OpenAI signed a deal with Reddit, because OpenAI knows it's screwed in the European space because of the copyright and IP challenges. Yep. But there's a problem with this. Reddit never really consulted their consumer base whether or not they wanted to have their data sold to OpenAI. And if anybody's been on Reddit, you know that the Reddit consumer base is some of the most contrarian, cantankerous user base out there. These are literally the people you would think you would most definitely want to consult with before you do something like this. Mm-hmm, and yes, you better believe the consumer base burning Reddit. In fact, you have large numbers of Reddit users who are actually poisoning their data. What does that mean? They're actually literally putting garbage into the data that they've created on Reddit at scale, which basically means OpenAI's investment, by the time they take it over, will be largely pointless. We are operating very differently.
Lose the value of Reddit at that point too, which is a shame, because that's a good platform, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's already devalued it's already brought down the value of Reddit. It's kind of like the minute anybody announced that Elon Musk was going to buy Twitter, everybody's like, oh, and groaned. It's the same thing. It's tone deaf. It's not paying attention to the consumer base and what they desire. And by the way, it was only 6.4 million. It wasn't even a billion. It was like chump change money they sold this data for. It was ridiculous.
Interesting.
For businesses, This basically does the same proposition applies. So, for example, if a business was, because we actually do have enterprise versions of our products, we even white label versions of our products so that companies can benefit from our infrastructure without even running our brand even. Which basically means because businesses would have access to the Vox Energy Hub for their business and have control of all of their business data types, they could literally do the same thing. Say, for example, if Freshfields, Brookhouse, Derringer used our platforms as opposed to using SharePoint and Yammer and LinkedIn, they would have direct control of all of the data of their employees. And this social data could then be used to create more intelligent AIs, which could be used internally, which again will not bleed out IP, intellectual property, intellectual data, or proprietary information.
So a business could have an ILM, and from the world I sit in, ILMs mean something else. And I'm going to have to recondition myself that this is actually a cool thing, because ILM in a lot of the world I live in is information lifecycle management, and that is like way a thing of the past.
Oh, no.
I'm going to have to recondition my brain because this is cool. But you could have an ILM or whatever you would call it, a business language model or whatever, individual for the business that's built in the same sort of way. This is fascinating, JB. Thank you for joining. This is an insightful and really fun conversation to have. And, I think it's great for people to see not just what to be afraid of, but, some of the opportunities that are evolving out there too, and solutions to things that are a little bit scary. So thank you so much for joining us. I know it's quite late in the evening for you right now. How can people find you? If people want to follow up, learn more about your solutions, give it a try, pick your brain about something, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, you can also always catch me on Vox Alive, which is our version of Facebook, which is vox-alive.xyz.
And can we find you on Facebook?
You can, but I don't really bother with it because...
I just assumed the answer was no.
No, it's just absolutely... You have to be, because it's got ubiquity and everybody's bloody on there. So we do some marketing on Facebook, but not much, because there's no point to doing marketing on Facebook because it's just all bots now. We're also on social, so you can find me on Twitter, JBWB2020, and you can also find me on TikTok as well, T3Chaos, T3Chaos 80.
Super interesting. I look forward to following how you guys progress over the next couple of years as well.
Thank you very much. It's been great being here.
Take care. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Data Unchained, powered by Hammerspace. To learn more, visit hammerspace.com. If you have a guest you would like to hear on the show, email me at molly@hammerspace.com.